Here at Logic Before Faith, we use science, facts, and above all, logic to determine truths about things we don't know about. Today I have a video from Prager University, narrated by Peter Kreeft, a professor of philosophy. He argues that a belief in God is more logical than atheism, and of course I'll be giving my commentary on that.
Is it rational to believe in God?
That would be a big fat no.
Many people think that faith and reason are opposites, that belief in God and tough-minded logical reasoning are like oil and water. They are wrong. Belief in God is far more rational than atheism.
Faith is not the belief in God. It's the suspension of evidence, doubt, reasoning, and logic. Having faith means that you let go and just believe without caring about evidence or lack of evidence. Faith is most definitely the opposite of logic and reasoning.
Logic can show that there is a God. If you look at the universe with common sense and an open mind, you'll find that it's full of God's fingerprints.
But the fingerprints of which God? Of all the thousands of gods created by man, how do you single that out to be your God?
A good place to start is with an argument by Thomas Aquinas, the great 13th century philosopher and theologian. The argument starts with the not very startling observation that things move. But nothing moves for no reason. Something must cause that movement. And whatever caused that must be caused by something else, and so on. But this causal chain cannot go backwards forever. It must have a beginning. There must be an unmoved mover to begin all the motion in the universe, a first domino to start the whole chain moving, since mere matter never moves itself.
But this unmoved mover does not mean that you place your God in that slot and say, here, this works much better. Just because scientists don't know at the present time doesn't mean they won't know in the future, just like you mentioned on your very next point. For centuries, man have been placing their created gods to fill the gaps by what we don't know and what scientists hasn't uncovered yet. But that's a logical fallacy called the God of the gaps, and you of all people, Mr. Kreeft, should know that being a philosophy professor and all. Each discovery by science, that gap closes by a little bit, and it's okay to say that we don't know something. Even until the end of time, the end of our existence, if we never uncover a single thing else from science, that still does not mean you get to insert your God.
A modern objection to this argument is that some movements in quantum mechanics, radioactive decay, for example, have no discernible cause. But hang on a second. Just because scientists don't see a cause doesn't mean there isn't one. It just means science hasn't found it yet. Maybe someday they will. But then there will have to be a new cause to explain that one, and so on and so on. But science will never find the first cause. That's no knock on science. It simply means that a first cause lies outside the realm of science.
We don't actually know if we will ever find a first cause, the beginning, or the domino that sets the dominoes in motion as you describe it. And we don't know if it is or isn't a possibility to find the first cause. But to hang it up and to say it's outside science is an argument from ignorance, and again another logical fallacy, Mr. Kreeft.
Another way to explain this argument is that everything that begins must have a cause. Nothing can come from nothing. So if there's no first cause, there can't be second causes, or anything at all. In other words, if there's no creator, there can't be a universe.
Again, like I mentioned before, you don't get to insert your God, or any God for that matter, into the equation. Everything we see around us in nature is natural. It happens naturally. To insert a God is to go to the supernatural, and that requires faith, not logic as you described in the beginning of your video.
But what if the universe were infinitely old, you might ask? Well, all scientists today agree that the universe is not infinitely old, that it had a beginning in the Big Bang. If the universe had a beginning, then it didn't have to exist. And things which don't have to exist must have a cause. There's confirmation of this argument from Big Bang cosmology. We now know that all matter, that is, the whole universe, came into existence some 13.7 billion years ago, and it's been expanding and cooling ever since. No scientist doubts that anymore, even though, before it was scientifically proved, atheists called it creationism in disguise.
Okay, what atheists ever said that the Big Bang was creationism in disguise? What does that even mean? If you are an atheist, that means you lack a belief in God, or the Creator as you describe it. So why would atheists say that the Big Bang was creationism in disguise? That makes no sense.
Now, add to this premise a very logical second premise, the principle of causality, that nothing begins without an adequate cause. And you get the conclusion that since there was a Big Bang, there must be a Big Banger. But is this Big Banger God? Why couldn't it be just another universe?
Now that's a mighty fine question.
Because Einstein's general theory of relativity says that all time is relative to matter, and since all matter began 13.7 billion years ago, so did all time. So there's no time before the Big Bang.
Simply put, no one knows what happened or what could have happened before the beginning, other than speculation.
And even if there is time before the Big Bang, even if there is a multiverse, that is, many universes with many Big Bangs, as string theory says is mathematically possible, that too must have a beginning. An absolute beginning is what most people mean by God.
Again, we don't know, and no one does. To put your God in the blank space is a logical fallacy called the God of the gaps.
Some atheists find the existence of an infinite number of other universes more rational than the existence of a creator. Never mind that there is no empirical evidence at all that any of these unknown universes exists, let alone 1,000 or a gazillion. The conclusion that God exists doesn't require faith. Atheism requires faith.
Atheism says nothing about the beginning of the universe. It only is a position on the belief in God.
It takes faith to believe in everything coming from nothing. It takes only reason to believe in everything coming from God.
If your only argument for a belief in God is the lack of knowledge about the beginning of the universe, that is the God of the gaps and an argument from ignorance, both logical fallacies. Throwing God in there requires faith, because there's no proof of a God. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. All scientists are saying is that they don't know. It could be a multiverse, it could be an infinite universe, it could be anything. We don't know. And again, not knowing is okay. We don't have to put God in there. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.